Hey commuters, I'm feeling pretty good this morning. One, it's Friday, and two, to ride a Panigale to work. Probably gonna be pretty fun. Sexy cool bike. Yeah. Let's make some clatter and get to the office. I feel a little bit bad for my neighbors because this thing makes kind of a racket. Yep, there it is. Unmistakable sound of a Super Quadro running a little bit cold. So I'm gonna get out my driveway as soon as I can. Okie dokie. One thing you might be thinking right now is, what the heck is a Super Quadro, Zach? What are you talking about? Super Quadro is the term that Ducati uses to describe their V-twin engines that are extremely over square. They came up with that name for the original Panigale, the 1199, which had an extreme bore to stroke ratio. So it has like a big honking bore and a little tiny stroke. It's about 2-to-1 in the big Panigale. In this bike, it's not quite as extreme, but it's still very over square. And since we're talking about engines, we can mention that when Ducati built this 959 instead of the 899, they actually increased stroke and not bore. I, for one, was excited because I've always kind of had a problem with the Super Quadro engine ever since I rode the original 1199. One of the big attractions to me for a V-twin is nice, broad, usable torque, and lots of it. It's obviously an advantage that a twin has over a 3 or 4 cylinder bike of roughly the same displacement, but the engines don't really work that way. The way the Super Quadro engine makes power, it makes power way up near the top of the rev band. And to me, it just makes it kind of hard to ride. It definitely makes it bad in situations like this, like commuting. And sure, yeah, Ducati never claimed that Panigales would be good for commuting or rides like this. But still, even as an expert club racer, I don't find it very easy to use. But back to the task at hand, this Commute we got here. That little pop through the gearbox, you probably hear that quick shifter working, and that is one of my favorite things about this bike, actually. The quick shifter is really good. Historically, Ducati quick shifters are kind of, I don't know, like they work really well on the track, but on the road you kind of feel like you have to kick at them to get them to work, and just not as smooth as you know, lots of other companies that have quick shifters. But this 959 one has obviously been refined. They worked on it, and they worked on it to be used in street situations, I reckon, because it's quite good. It's very smooth. It doesn't have the auto blip downshift, which I kind of don't blame them. You know, leave that for the flagship bike if you want. That's cool. Might as well get some of the regular stuff out of the way, I guess. Since we're approaching a red light, as is tradition for me, to talk about the brakes. Brakes on this bike are very good. No surprise there. They are big, honking, Brembo monoblock brakes. As far as some of the ergonomic stuff, the mirrors are basically useless, as you would expect. They're not really useless, they're just not very good. The riding position is very aggressive, again, as you would expect. The seat's pretty good though. The seat's actually pretty thick. This is a lesson that they learned on the when the 1299 first came out. It started to copy the 899 because the 1199 was pretty brutally uncomfortable. And then the 899 came out and they put a nice thick seat on it, and that was real nice. And then the 1299 came out and they put the thick seat from the the 899, and then they use the nice grippy foot pegs from the Superleggera, which I actually talked to the engineer who was in charge of making that decision. He said he fought and he fought to get away from those Ducati cast slippery foot pegs, and they did it. And it's a glorious, glorious thing, because if you ride one of these bikes on the track, you really want good foot pegs so your feet don't slip around. And now the 1299 has them from the Superleggera, and the 959 has them as well. There they are. Good job down there, guys. What else do we usually do at red lights? If you hit the blinker cancel switch one extra time, you'll pull up a little menu for ride modes: race, sport, wet. I like sport, so I leave it in sport. It doesn't work out all that well for me, because if you watch the show, you know that I like to cancel my blinker a lot, just so that I don't have my blinker on by accident. But that means I enter the ride mode menu by accident sometimes, which is my own damn fault, I guess. Not that big a deal anyway. You have to hold it down to select the ride mode, so don't worry, guys, I'm not in the wrong ride mode by accident. Oh man, caught this green light. Never catch this green light. Must be my lucky day. Yeah, some turns. This is where that Panigale likes to live. I mean, honestly, it's crazy. As soon as you've been through a couple corners on this bike, it all just kind of snaps into focus. You can tell that this is what they had in mind. You flick it once from right to left and left to right, and you're like, oh yeah, that's what this bike's good at. It's good at being agile, light, and it made me wish I was on a racetrack with knee pucks on instead of on 405 South behind a Ford Flex. So my commute is about 10 or 15 minutes old now, and my thighs are very, very warm. It's about 70, 75 degrees right now in Southern California on my commute. My thighs are definitely warmer than 75 degrees, no question. And that's always been a bit of a Panigale problem. Look out. Got someone coming up hot, coming up on me. Connie 14, wearing sneakers, all right. The thigh cooking problem has always been a bit of a Panigale problem, because that big honking header pipe comes out of the rear cylinder and it coils up underneath the seat, and it's very hot. And there's a little heat shield down there, but you know, you're just bound to have a warm butt when you ride a Panigale. Out here on the freeway, Panigale is not especially comfortable, if I'm honest, but you know, it's really not that bad. The suspension is stiff like a sport bike, but it's not crazy. It soaks up the bumps just fine. And then there's that old thing where when the riding position's really aggressive and you're leaned way forward, when you have some wind hitting you in the chest, it just sort of helps balance it out. It's arguably a little bit more comfortable on the freeway than it is around town, just because there isn't so much weight on your wrists. The ramp. Yeah. You do your thing, Panigale. Yeah. Man, it really does feel good in the middle of a corner, as sport bikes will do. Yeah, man. When you get up above 8,000 RPM on this bike, it sort of comes alive. We ran it on our dyno and we got 131 horsepower, which sounds pretty good, I suppose. I think it does anyway, but it really only makes 131 horsepower way up at the tippy top. And I was kind of curious how this motor stacked up to some of its competition. So I overlaid the dyno lines with a bunch of bikes. Let's see. GSXS 1000, Ninja 1000, V-Strom 1000, FZ09, Thruxton R, a whole bunch of bikes, and we looked at the lines to see where this bike actually makes power. And sure enough, compared to all those bikes, as you'd kind of expect, the Panigale makes lots of power up at the top, but very little at the bottom. And when I say the bottom, it revs to 11, but below 8,000 RPM, it really kind of doesn't do a whole lot for you. In fact, below 8,000 RPM, you'll get more power from a V-Strom 1000, you'll get more power from an FZ09, you'll get more power from a Ninja 1000. And I mean, granted, a Ninja 1000 is a 4-cylinder and it has more displacement, so that's kind of cheating. But I mean, when I think of a Ninja 1000, I don't think of necessarily a whole lot of performance, frankly. It's a pretty mild state of tune. Anyway, the point is, this engine has that super quadro quality. It's very, very peaky. It makes lots of power up top. The thing that gets me about the Panigale's engine, say it's, you know, it's designed for racetrack, right? It makes all its power between 8,000 and 11,000 RPM. Fine, it's a race bike, it's a sport bike, you want to take it to a track, right? Well, my only problem there is that for the same price, you can get, you know, you can get a Tuono, you can get a Japanese leader bike, not as high tech, I guess. You know, you're gonna get your face melted with power with those bikes, and they're gonna be really good on the track, and they're not really gonna give up anything on the street. I mean, the Tuono is a perfect example. I bet I could go around a racetrack faster on a Tuono than I could on this 959 Panigale, and day to day I'd be much happier because I'd have more torque on the street, I'd have higher handlebar. It's just a little bit tough to justify this bike for 15,000 bucks. I mean, you know, what it has that other bikes don't have is the fact that it's a Ducati. I'm not exactly a Ducati super fan, but the Ducati brand to me has value. It is cool. It is cool. They sound cool, they look cool, they have a certain status that other bikes just kind of don't match. I mean, if you're talking about a Panigale, a 959 Panigale versus a Ninja 1000, whether you're talking about the engine or you're talking about a day-to-day bike, you know, or you're talking about getting the kickstand down, son of a... Is the Ninja 1000 a better bike? Probably. But is it as cool as this thing? Hell no, it's not. Look at that. Oh, it's freaking gorgeous. It sounds angry and it's beautiful. It's damn cool. I mean, if you think a Panigale is ugly, then that's your opinion and you're entitled to it, but I think you're wrong. So, as a commuter, are there better bikes? Yes. But did I want to ride a different bike to work today? Nope, not really. Because it felt cool. Yeah. Okay. It's Friday for me. Hope you had fun on that ride. Spend your $15,000 wisely, everybody.